Alright, YouTube, so as promised, I said I was gonna make another video tonight about, pretty much hell. Basically, not much is said about hell that we traditionally think of it as. Most of what we know, or what we think of hell, comes from this book, the Inferno by Dante. Oh, damn. But, yeah, it's just a book filled with a bunch of poems, pretty much. It's just a one giant poem. And it speaks of, hell, what he was told to portray hell as, because as we know, he was hired to write about hell in such a manner that would make people more faithful and back the church a little more. So, anything you hear about hell probably comes from this book. And you know what this book isn't? This book isn't the Bible, which a lot of people say that stuff derives from. But no, it actually derives from an extra-biblical text called the Inferno, which is just Christian-inspired fiction. So, fiction-inspired fiction. Basically, yeah, most of that stuff is from the Inferno. There's no such thing as the devil being, horned and red-skinned and half-goat with a pitchfork spitting fire at you, poking you in the ass cheeks with his, hellish trident while you're drowning in his river of lava. That's pretty much deriving from that. Lucifer was just a fallen angel. He never had any of these extra features. He would have looked like any other angel, except he's fallen. But in another sense, doesn't this break the Christian dogma? Let's look at this real quick. Satan, ruler of an underworld that punishes bad guys. So wouldn't Jehovah still consider Satan a good person? A soul, a deity. I consider, a lot of Christians don't consider him a deity, but I do, because in a way, they still worship him as God. You got God, the God of what they believe is good, but what's actually God of, killing millions of people and being evil, then comes back in the New Testament and becomes gay for everyone and tries to make peace, even though, he still did things like murder a bunch of babies in an Egyptian village, male babies, and commanded people to do certain things, and if they wouldn't, he'd just do massive natural disasters like floods or start diseases, cause plagues, major population wipeouts. So, they worship him in caution, so they give him a deified status too. And I also want to add that in the earliest sect of Christianity, there was 3 gods. Satan was the god of good. God was the god of bad. But there is a force that was above them both, called Braxis, which in modern Christianity, somehow, that was put, God was saw it as being kind of Braxis, and Satan down there. It's just a bunch of hokum ripped off from Judaism, which ripped off from a bunch of pagan moon cults. Just research your history. Half these gods are in, Eurasia, not like East Asia, but I'm talking about the Indo-European. Yeah, most of those gods pretty much taken from Mesopotamian culture, lore, their gods, and they put them in more of their more cultural context. Because there's similarities between, Norse pagan gods and, the Mesopotamian gods, and also there was some that said that sorry, Flattest, I'm sorry. Some a long time ago that pointed out all the familiarities between Jesus and Horus. And Satan and Enki, because I believe there's a story about Enki, how he tried to deify humans because they're said as being a slave race, but Enki, he was punished for trying to deify the slave race, and the serpent, Satan, he pretty much did the same thing, told him to eat from the tree of knowledge so they could become as powerful as God. And what did God do? He banished Satan to hell. Oh, and I also need to get into another thing. There's a few different terms that people are jumbling up. Lucifer and Satan. Lucifer is, I can't remember what ancient language it was, but it just meant light bearer. Satan, I think, is from I think it's like ancient Hebrew origin, maybe. But, yeah, so that's basically it, what I had to say. So, you're not going to be roasting in an abyss. For one, Christianity isn't true. Judaism isn't true. And any of the stuff you heard of hell isn't true to Christianity, because it was ruled, or it was made up by Dante, who wrote the Inferno, this book, to try to get people to be more fearful and support the church more, because at the time, how the church was Roman. So what the Romans would do is they would spiritually try to conquest other people, and they would tell other surrounding nations or tribes and stuff, oh, we celebrate or worship a similar God, but we call him this, and you guys call him that. And it would be kind of slightly different, but they just write it up as a difference in language. And basically, once Christianity was adopted, the Bible was compiled by the Roman Empire, and a lot of texts weren't canonized in the Bible because it challenged authority. So, you can see why the Bible's always so, God's always so overbearing and tyrannical, because it's a reflection of the empire that was basically creating the religion. Because if you look at it, he didn't want, the emperor at the time, I can't remember his name, someone just put it in the comments, he didn't want people to be exposed to material that would open their minds to trying to challenge the status quo or authority. So tons of books weren't canonized, and they're probably collecting dust in the Vatican archives to this day. And so they compiled the books that were authoritative and were strict and made people fearful, because that's how you control people. You get them scared. That's how it is in politics. That's how it is in religion. They go hand in hand most of the time. It's influenced. Just like, how conservatives in America, they'll use Jesus as kind of a status thing more, but it's still prevalent. But their version of Jesus would be a lot different from the Roman Empire's version of Jesus, and that would be a lot different from the alien conspiracy theorist, Jehovah, creator of all Pleiadians trying to save us, New Age or Christian movements, which is different from Mormonism, which kind of is, but kind of isn't Christianity, which would be different from liberal Christians that just say, oh, everybody's going to go to heaven. It's all authoritative, and it's all devised to make you sit down and listen and not talk back. Peace out, YouTube.